Welcome in. It is a Sports by the Book Football Frenzy special. I'm Jeff Parles, thrilled to be with you as always. The Monday after the conference championship games, we know the matchup for Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to be looking to be the first team ever to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. They will take on the Philadelphia Eagles for the second time in 3 years in the big game. We're going to do a first look here today. And there's no one better to bring in than my guy, Matt Hamilton. You see him on Up and Adams FanDuel Network. Matt Hamilton, 25 on the tweets, on air, senior producer of the show. And we bring Hammer in right now here for this preview. Matt, thank you for hopping on. This is, you and I were talking before we went live here. This is a matchup that we saw 2 years ago. It produced an all-timer Super Bowl that Kansas City won on a last-second field goal by Harrison Butker by 3. And now we get a matchup where, amazingly enough, the Eagles actually have even more talent than they had 2 years ago. And Kansas City is looking to make history as the first team to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls.
Yeah, it is. It is the matchup it probably should have been. I think these were the two best teams consistently throughout the year, taking out Detroit's injuries out of the equation, because obviously that was a huge factor there. But of the teams that were healthy and left going into these playoffs, I think these were the two best. And it's hard to say these Eagles aren't better than they were the last time these two met. And for the Chiefs, it is just incredible. I mean, they've already made history just making it this far. No team seeking a three-peat has even made it back to the Super Bowl in that third year. 5 Super Bowl appearances in 6 years for Patrick Mahomes. We've reached unprecedented territory after yesterday for him.
It is insane. And hey, look, I'm not going to go into the conspiracy arm of social media that is just looking to be mad at anything humanly possible. This is an absurd achievement by Kansas City. I mean, you mentioned it. They are the first team seeking the three-peat that even made it past the conference championship game previously. The teams that were seeking a three-peat have been 0-3 in the conference championship weekend. Of course, Mahomes is there 5 times in 6 years. And again, remember, this was before Mahomes came around, one of the bigger loser franchises in the NFL, only 1 Super Bowl appearance before Patrick Mahomes got around. Yeah, they won it with Len Dawson, but that was over 50 years ago before they won that first one back against the 49ers in the 2019 season. Matt, early numbers here. South Point actually moved around a little bit. So Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo and company opened this Kansas City -1. It got as high as 2. And now a little bit of a take back right now as we're recording this. Kansas City's a 1.5-point favorite with a total of 49.5 in this game. And Matt will dissect why we like things in this game in a moment. But your initial thoughts on these early numbers?
I mean, I think that's got to be what it should be, right? With Patrick Mahomes, with the Chiefs, with the history with them, it's hard to give the Eagles the edge. But I mean, we talked about it a little bit before we came on. I mean, this Eagles team is so talented. I think that kind of, the Eagles probably have the edge in talent. The Chiefs have the edge in just the Mahomes factor of it. So I think you give the Chiefs a little bit of the edge overall. I think this is pretty much right where this should be.
So let's start with Philadelphia having the football first. And then we'll work our way through here. Of course, yesterday, Saquon Barkley and company they only had 7 rushing touchdowns as a team yesterday. Pretty good day. NFL record for most in a playoff game. Even Will Shipley got in on the act, which sure, as we all expected. But look, we've talked about it all year, and I actually think it was Brady who made this point yesterday of, you think of explosive offenses in the NFL, you never think of a team that is run first as an explosive offense. And this Philadelphia offense is, if they're not the most explosive offense in the NFL, they're darn close. And it's because they have an elite offensive line. They have the best running back in the sport right now. And they have the ability, all right, you want to slow down Saquon and hold him under 100 yards? Still have a top-flight number 1 wide receiver in A.J. Brown, a top-flight number 2 in Devontae Smith, a good tight end in Dallas Goedert, and a quarterback in Jalen Hurts. When he's not holding the ball, is making really good decisions and has realistically since that Week 4 debacle in Tampa. That was really the last time that the Eagles did not look like a championship-caliber team, Matt.
Yeah, and I mean, you go back to that, everybody was hurt in that Tampa game, too. They were dealing with a lot of injuries at that time. So, getting healthier. The Kellen Moore addition was huge for them. The Vic Fangio addition was huge for them. It's just amazing to think that they're in this point with where they were a year ago and all the uncertainty and all the chaos that was going on and that complete collapse at the end of last year. But I mean, it goes to show how much coordinators matter, and it goes to show how much Saquon Barkley matters to this team. Because I think he, beyond the coordinator changes that absolutely had a big impact, just getting him in there offensively kind of settled them down into this identity. Because I think with Jalen Hurts, it's not a disrespect to him or AJ or what they have in the passing game, but with Jalen Hurts, he is at his best in a run-first offense. The last time they made the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, it was a run-first attack and all the RPOs off of that. That's when we see him shine. They tried to make this a drop-back passing team last year. It didn't work. You get Saquon, the ultimate, superstar running back in the mix, and it allows them to get back to their identity and then some. Obviously, he's taken that to another level there, but it's helped out Jalen tremendously too. And you see it in these moments when he has to throw. He's been coming through, and really the critical moment I come back to on Sunday is that 4th and 5. They put the ball in his hands and let him air that ball out to A.J. Brown. That's a 14-12 game at that point. If he doesn't hit A.J. Brown there, the Commanders probably go into halftime with the lead. Instead, they push it to 27-12 late in that second quarter. It was such a huge turning point. And again, to have a 4th and 5 at midfield and put the ball in his hands and let him let it rip, I think says a lot.
Defensively speaking for Kansas City, Matt, again, this is a unit that at the beginning of the year was as good as anyone on the defensive side of the ball. Then the injuries started to come through. They were still good, but they weren't elite for about a 6-week stretch. They were good enough yesterday. I don't think they played overly well, but again, credit to Buffalo's offense for managing to fall on all 5 fumbles that happened in the AFC title game on Sunday. But look, this is a Kansas City defense that during this run of championships has proven when they've needed to be at their best, they show up. And yesterday, there was no better example than that last sequence of events where Steve Spagnuolo calls a sicko blitz, for no other better word, and forces Josh Allen, who, again, made an absurd play to even get Dalton Kincaid an opportunity in a ball he probably should have caught. But this Kansas City defense, they don't jump off the page other than Chris Jones and Nick Bolton and McDuffie in the secondary, but this is a unit that is just so darn consistent yet again here into their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl in their 5th and 6th years.
Yeah, and I mean, you're wondering after last year, the defense kind of carried them there last year, but losing L'Jarius Sneed was a huge deal, and you see them manage that. Jalen Watson had a tremendous start to the year. He gets hurt. He's back now. This is the healthiest their defense has been since October. And it's shown, again, it wasn't their strongest performance overall yesterday, but when the chips were down, they stepped up. And it's been interesting because I think early in the year, like the run defense was, you just couldn't run on them. Some quarterbacks had broken a couple runs, but you couldn't really run on them. Lately, though, and we saw it yesterday, the Bills were able to run on them a little bit. And I think that's something that is an area of concern you look at heading into this one. Obviously, the Eagles' run game is a different animal than pretty much anybody you're going to face all year. But the secondary, I think, having Jalen back in there, the secondary is stronger than it's been. But yeah, I think you also give Spags those 2 weeks to game plan against Saquon and that Eagles offense. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, it was interesting. I think it was when they were nickel more that the Bills were able to run on them a ton. I wonder how much they just stay in straight base and try to force Jalen Hurts to beat them in this game. Because I think we all agree, you can't let Saquon beat you. You have to do everything you can to take him out of the game. And Jalen is certainly capable, but I think that's what you have to do. Try to force the issue with him and tighten up on these receivers and make him have to air it out down the field.
Well, no, it's interesting, Matt, because the last time we saw this matchup in the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts played his best game as a professional. I don't think there's any arguing that. That was his best game, and it still wasn't enough to win that game in Glendale 2 years ago. And look, if I'm Kansas City, I'm with you. If Saquon's going to get his 100 yards. Like it's going to happen. He's going to score at least once, maybe twice. But if you're Kansas City, you have to eliminate the 60-yard pop like we saw immediately out of the gate yesterday, where Washington has that epic drive to begin the game. I didn't love that Quinn kicked the field goal on 4th and 3, but whatever.
Yeah.
You got points on the board. And then immediate 60-yard rip right out of the gate, and it's like, all right, good luck. Good luck staying in here, more likely than not, if you're Washington. Kansas City just has to eliminate that portion of Philadelphia or even slow down that portion. Like Barkley's going to probably hit 125, 30-yard run. That's just who he is. But that's the key to me. I'm with you. Make Jalen Hurts beat you if you're Kansas City. And if he does, you know what? The Eagles deserve to win the Lombardi here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and again, he's capable. You said it. We saw him play the best football game of his life against the Chiefs last time when they made him do that. But again, that's, it ultimately resulted in a Chiefs win. And I think you take him going shot for shot with Mahomes. If it turns into that kind of a game, you like your odds with the Chiefs, where you don't like your odds if the Eagles are able to go on these long, sustained drives and keep the ball away from Mahomes, which we know they're certainly capable outside of the pops. They're certainly capable of doing that as well.
Matt, let's go with Philadelphia's defense before we get to Mahomes and KC's offense here. The Eagle defense is the best unit in this game to me, and I know that Patrick Mahomes is on the other side with Kansas City. I get that. But for pure consistency this year and pure elite play, Philadelphia's defense, since, again, week 4, when everyone was not healthy here, this has been the best unit in football, period, to me. And yeah, that may be strong, but this defense has been at such a ridiculous level other than that Washington game, week 16. And credit to Vic Fangio, credit to that secondary for improving. But it all starts with that defensive front that, as we saw against Washington, is so unbelievably hard to block because they have dudes on the inside led by Jalen Carter, and then they can throw 5 different guys on you on the outside.
Yeah, it is. It is tough to contain, and it's such a huge luxury when Vic doesn't have to bring 5 or 6, when he can get home with 4, give you some creative looks, and find ways to create pressure. Because as you said, that interior rush is really, really tough to stop. I think that's where they make it really hard for you. And I think that's where, for Patrick, he likes to step up in that pocket and then break outside like that. Those interior rushes can give him some issues. So that's definitely going to be something to watch for. It's interesting too with the secondary. They've been so good across the board, but it's a very different type of passing attack with Kansas City than kind of what we saw last week with Washington, where like Terry McLaurin's the guy you got to stop. With the Chiefs, it can be anybody on that field at any time. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Chiefs exploit some of those matchups, because I think there are still some ways you can get after them, especially with the linebackers. Oren Burks has his issues in coverage, things like that. There are things you can do to get after this defense a little bit. And I think the Chiefs, it almost plays in their favor that it can be a different guy on any game. Like there's no real way to game plan against this Chiefs passing attack.
It's so interesting on the Kansas City end of things. Look, it all started. We've run out of superlatives on Mahomes. I just at this point, like, if his career ended after this game, he'd go into Canton 5 years later. He's already a Hall of Famer. Yep. He might legitimately have 2 Hall of Fame careers in one if you split whatever his midway point ends up being to the end of his career. But you just mentioned it. I think for Kansas City's offense, the biggest thing in this game, and Travis Kelce was non-existent in the AFC title game because Buffalo's game plan was take him the hell out of the game, and they did. Yeah. And Mahomes beat him with his legs. Kareem Hunt had his best game in months, and the wide receivers were good enough for Kansas City. And most importantly, that offensive line held up for Kansas City as well against Buffalo. That's the whole ball of wax for me in this one, Matt. The only Kansas City Super Bowl loss, now granted, different circumstance. KC was without both of their starting tackles against Tampa in that Super Bowl, and they just could not block at all in that game. But if KC's O-line holds up here, even as good as Philadelphia's defense is, as good as the Eagles are as a whole, it is very hard for me to see Kansas City not hoisting that Lombardi again if that KC O-line holds up in this game, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it is a big question because we've seen, kind of the Band-Aid on the whole offensive line situation for the Chiefs, which is, I think, what was holding that passing game back at points this year was the pass protection. The Band-Aid was to move Joe Thuney out to left tackle. He's been very good there. They've been getting the ball out of Mahomes' hands a little bit quicker, but the trade-off with that is Mike Caliendo at guard. And we just talked about those interior pass rushers. You saw what Jordan Phillips was able to do to him in a big moment yesterday. That's going to be something that the Chiefs are going to need to account for. It's going to be a really tough assignment for Caliendo against any of those D tackles, any of those interior pass rushers. And you almost wonder if there is a break glass in case of emergency. They did sign DJ Humphries midseason. They were expecting him to be the left tackle. It hasn't really worked out. If there's a scenario in which we see them slide Tooney back inside and have Humphries at the left tackle spot, it would be a heck of an adjustment to make, right before the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't put it past them because I think the best version of their offensive line still is if Humphries can be just an average left tackle, you move Tooney back inside, that allows you to deal with this Eagles defensive line a lot better.
And Matt, I think when you're looking to bet props in this game, you're looking for all sorts of things. On the Kansas City end of things, the Patrick Mahomes rushing prop, I think, ends up being good again here like it was yesterday because of what you just said. There could be some shuffling mid-game here from Kansas City's O-line, especially if, again, Caliendo's the guy that everyone had their eyes on yesterday. He, again, good enough against Buffalo. Yeah. Different animal. As good as Ed Oliver is, he's not Jalen Carter. No one is Jalen Carter at this point in the NFL. He is that good interior-wise. But that feels like the prop. Again, we're going to let this marinate over the week. That's just how I bet props. I don't hit early numbers. I know that's not the sharp way of going about it, but I want to see how markets get played before hopping in. But that feels like one that should be good, depending it comes in the low 20s on the Mahomes rushing. And I just am curious your thoughts. There always seems to be one random sighting in these Kansas City Super Bowls from someone you do not expect from their pass catching core. Yesterday in the AFC title game, it was two massive rips by Juju Smith-Schuster that came out of absolutely nowhere. Of course, Smith-Schuster drew the big penalty that ended up winning the Super Bowl against Philadelphia 2 years ago. I just wonder, Matt, there is going to be one, like Justin Watson could score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Samaje Perine had the catch that put the game away yesterday. I completely forgotten that Perine was even on the team at this point, but
the last Eagles Super Bowl was Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney.
Sky Moore's only career touchdown came in the Super Bowl. That's right. But it's just, Kadarius Toney was awesome in that game too. But but that's my point. Like for Kansas City, there's going to be one weirdo guy that comes out of left field here that has a huge Super Bowl. It's just a matter of finding the dart and hitting the right spot on the board here, Matt.
Yeah, and I think my dart's going towards Noah Gray. I think that would be the guy that I would look at. We saw a little run of his in the middle of the season and around that Panthers game. In there, he made some big plays, and then he kind of went away for a little bit. This is the perfect time for him to resurface and score a couple inexplicable Super Bowl touchdowns.
Yeah, look again. This is, at least for right now, Matt. I don't have any bets right now on a traditional sense. If you're making me play it, I'm taking Kansas City because it's kind of like the point that Chris Felica made to Alex White and I yesterday of like, you're just going to feel stupid if you don't bet Kansas City in this spot. Like, of course, Kansas City wasn't going to lose to Buffalo in that circumstance. It would have been the flip of course, this was finally the time for Buffalo to beat KC. But I just in the camp at this point, Matt, where Mahomes is undefeated in games in the playoffs that are lined less than 3. Let me rephrase that. His only loss in a game that was lined 3 or less was the AFC title game against New England. Has not lost as a 3-point favorite or underdog or less in the playoffs since then. It's just so hard to pick against Kansas City, even though, again, I think if you look full roster, Philadelphia is better. But the quarterback is better on Kansas City's side. And look, the coaching, like Andy Reid's better than Sirianni. The coordinators, the two best defensive coordinators in football are in this game. And offensive coordinator wise, I don't love Kellen Moore. We all know my thoughts on Matt Nagy, but really it's Andy Reid. Again, the high level coaching staffs, even with the fact that a lot of people, including me, don't love Sirianni in this game.
Yeah, and I think, that's where the quarterback and the coaching leans Kansas City's way. And in a close matchup, I think, again, I'm going to wait a little bit to let things marinate, go through more film, but it's hard not to lean Kansas City. And again, I know going through and watching this, it's going to be exactly what you're saying. Like the caliber of the Eagles roster, top to bottom, is unmatched, I think, right now in this league. They're just so complete at every position. But again, you have the coach and the quarterback. That makes all the difference in the world. And just that ability in these big moments to just know how to get it done. And it does, like, it's gotten to the point that was a cliche. Like, it really is true about Patrick Mahomes and this team. They have this sense, this sixth sense, this knowledge of just how to finish out these games. And they know they're able to come through in every single big spot. It doesn't faze them. And we've seen it. I mean, listen, whatever else you want to say about what happened yesterday, we saw it with Josh Allen at times. Like, he was jittery to start that game. The moment was a little big for him at times. We obviously have seen it with Lamar a few times. Like, this team is just immune to that. And that's the other X factor here, is like how that affects Jalen Hurts after going through a loss and going through all that once before. Does he feel it even a little bit more? It's one thing when it's all new and it's early in your career and, you feel like you're going to get back. Like, how hard it is to get back now. You know how much it sucks to lose. Like, how much does that stuff start creeping in? So, yeah, I feel like I got to lean Kansas City at this point as well.
Yeah, look, I think if Philadelphia wins, like, I'm not going to be surprised. But again, until Kansas City gets beat, they are the pick, at least for me. Not the strongest, but again, it's Patrick Mahomes in a big game. And you can't really go against him. I mean, we're in a modern day NFL version of a Michael Jordan era at this point. I mean, that's what it is at this rate. We have not, even with how dominant New England was for a long period of time, they never made it to 3 straight Super Bowls. They never won 3 straight Super Bowls. Kansas City's looking to be the first team ever to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. Well, of course, remember, there have been teams that have made three or more consecutive Super Bowls, but that team managed to lose 4 in a row. Sorry, Bills fans. Sorry to rub. Not really that sorry, but that's what it is at this point.
They've been through enough.
It's so, look, I know this is a little off topic, but I'll just bring it up with you because you and I can talk about anything football related, Matt. But this is, I mean, for you got the AFC has, forget Mahomes. If Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow, who are quarterbacks 2 through 4 any way you want, and those dudes have combined 1 Super Bowl, they very easily, this is just how hard it is for them. Like, Jalen Hurts, you put Jalen Hurts in the AFC, Jalen Hurts never sniffs the Super Bowl. That's just how ridiculously good Mahomes has been. And I know a lot of people just finding any way to bring them down, but look, that's just what happens with greatness. This Kansas City team is on a stretch of football that is unprecedented in the league and likely will not be matched again unless if Kansas City continues to match themselves.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you say that in the Jordan comparison, because Kay got a little upset with me last night when we were talking through this. Because she's like, well, what about Brady? I'm like, with all, I'm not talking about overall career body of work. I'm talking about a 6-year stretch. Brady never did this. No. 5 and 6 years. He never did that. A 3-peat, never did that. Like, if he, already he's done stuff no one's ever done just by making it here. If the Chiefs win this game, this is the best 6-year stretch anyone's ever had in the history of this league.
It's insane. Kansas City, Philadelphia, Chiefs 1.5 point favorites, of course, here at the South Point, minus 105 on the spreads, and a dime line on the money line. So best number here in Vegas on Chiefs money line, right behind me. Best number on Philadelphia money line, right behind me. Thanks to the dime line. Great job by Chris Andrews and company, as always, getting everything done. The prop booklet underway, so be on the lookout for that this week. He's Matt Hamilton. Of course, you can find him on Up and Adams, FanDuel Network, Matt Hamilton 25 on the tweets. Of course, you also see him on the KC Sports Network as well. So he has the angle with the Chiefs as well, looking at their tape on a weekly basis for the KC Sports Network. Matt, pleasure as always, man. Thanks for hanging today.
Jeff, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Parles.
And I'm Alex White. Thank you for watching this clip of Sports by the Book. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe.
We live stream the show right here every day on this channel. Also, you can catch the podcast version on your favorite podcast platform.
All the links are in the description below. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.